When I think of language transmuting and converging around a new phenomenon or activity dominating the zeitgeist, I've noticed a strong impulse in me to want to opt out and avoid participating in that language altogether. I'd like to believe that's an impulse born out of a need to stay sincere and conscious in my use of that language, and not just rely on buzzwords and repeating empty phrases to the point of rendering them void and meaningless. But it could just be me overcompensating for some repressed need to seem special, interesting, and just a bit more unique than the average person doing what I do. In any case, you kinda caught me in the middle of a thought here, because I was thinking of voiceovers and how to introduce this video. And I immediately noticed how wrong it felt to just introduce this as a plain old Q&A video with some brief mention of who I am and what I do. As if I'm just doing the thing, playing the game in a way that is both familiar and easy to understand and categorize, which there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but also, what's the point? Yeah, what is the point indeed? Well, whatever it is, it's clearly not for me. This will be a Q&A video though, but the mention of who I am and what I do will not be brief. In fact, I was thinking let's just skip it all together and just jump straight into things. Because let's be honest, if you're watching this, you probably have some idea of who I am and what I do. And if you don't, you've made it this far without much of a clue about what's going on, and I can only respect that. You're probably a very awesome and open-minded person. All right, let's start. So I asked for questions on Discord and here on YouTube and promised to make a video if I got enough of them. And I did. Thank you, by the way. And here we are. Also, this video feels quite personal to me, I must admit, and also possibly a bit self-indulgent, so I decided to just go all in on that and just say it and include a bunch of footage from the channel over the years to try to break up the monotony of me just talking the whole time. So yeah, don't be confused by the changing seasons and the overall randomness of the visuals. I thought it'd be a nice summary of everything we've done together so far. Okay, let's start easy. What was the latest music gem you discovered? So at the beginning of last year, I started a new job, and at this job, I got to know a guy, an older gentleman, and started talking more and more, and it turns out he plays guitar, he sings in a choir, and he has really cool taste in music, like very eclectic, like me. And during the summer, he mentioned a record he had listened to. It used to be an old favorite of his that I guess he hadn't listened to for a while, and he brought it back and just kind of reconnected with it, I guess. And the record made him think of me. He thought this could be up my alley based on what he knew about me and my taste, and he thought I would like it. And it turns out he was very correct about this. The record in question was The Evil One from 1980 by Rocky Erickson and the Aliens, or just Rocky Erickson. Rocky Erickson is definitely what I would call a gem, and I would put him up there with the likes of Peter Green, Brian Wilson, and Syd Barrett, in that there were other things that came in the way of what we would traditionally call success. He also made some amazing stuff in the 60s with a band called 13th Floor Elevators, the first band ever to have the word psychedelic associated with their music, by the way. Another great album he shared with me is one from 1989 called On Fire by the band Galaxy 500. It's definitely another gem, and I guess it has quite the cult following still. For example, Pitchfork ranked it number 4 on the list of the best dream pop albums ever. And as far as newer music goes, I feel like there's so much awesome music being created practically all the time, and even in our little community. So I want to put a pin in this one and return to this question later with some gems from within the community. Would you say you have a love-hate relationship with music? No, I wouldn't, because hate it's just much too strong of a word, but what I would say is there can be a lot of frustration at times, because it's much more complicated now, and it's hard for me to listen to music only as a fan. In a way, I think that's why I gravitated to these older records and artists this year, because I wouldn't compare my music to this older way of making music. There's too much distance there in a good way, so I can just relax and enjoy it. Anything contemporary and I immediately compare and analyze like crazy, which leaves me both inspired and completely bummed out. It ranges from something like, wow, that is a cool idea, I need to try a version of that, to I should just quit yesterday because that is everything I want my music to be, but better in every way. And I also get a little exhausted and overwhelmed by the amount of music being created every single day. Even though I do think that's a great and wonderful thing, it does get to me at times too, in a way that everything does in this hyper-connected world that we have today, where it's just too much bombardment, and it's hard not to be hyper-aware of it all, at least for me. But I still obsess over music. I still love it. I just wish that I was just a little bit better at making my vision come true in every aspect of the process, I guess. Through the many years of you playing music, has your enjoyment of it changed? Such as you enjoyed one aspect of music before, but not now, or you didn't enjoy something but have grown to like it? In a way, this is a huge question because it relates to me coming out of my shell, if you will, but I'll try to keep things brief. And as I already mentioned, I definitely don't listen as a fan anymore. I listen more as a student of music, as pretentious as that may sound, but it's like mentally I've made the move to the in-group. I am now a fellow music maker, a fellow music creator. I'm no longer just a music listener putting on a songwriting costume for pretend in my bedroom where no one can see me, that kind of thing. And I also think because of my age and where I am in life, I don't listen to lyrics the same anymore. And I don't look for the same things in music I enjoy now as opposed to when I was younger. When I was young, everything was lyrics. I was always looking to channel my emotions through music, and finding songs that felt relevant to what I was going through was obviously a key part in that. It's not really like that anymore. I'm not looking for a soundtrack to my life. I listen to get better at my craft. I listen for tools to get my own ideas across in better ways. I listen for sounds, production, song structure, everything I can to help me improve and expand my toolbox. Music when I was young was so much about identity for me as well. It was important to listen to the right bands and to impress the right people. Now it's all just music, and it has nothing to do with picking the right identity anymore, so I listen to everything and anything that interests me. And I don't put music makers on a pedestal anymore, or think of them as people with magical powers that I could never obtain. And I now hear things in music where I pause and think, I would have made a different choice there, or I would have gone to a different place, or I would have arranged that a bit differently. And that's cool to me. I mean, I'm more confident in my own taste now. I'm more confident in my own authenticity, and that obviously affects how I listen to music. So I would say that I enjoy music more now overall because I feel like a participant in the bigger project, the bigger picture, if you will, in a strange way. But at the same time, I am more analytical and more emotionally disconnected when I listen, for the most part, which doesn't give me the same highs it would when I was younger. But that could just be my age too. I mean, I just turned 35. Oh, and I also don't care a lot for impressive technique anymore, like I used to when it was really important for me to show others that I got it. That I got how difficult something would be to play. I don't try to, signal pretentious insights to hide insecurities through my musical taste anymore, which I guess is one aspect of how my enjoyment has changed. I feel more free. What is the appeal of Sabaton? This is a great question. For me personally, I have an emotional connection to that band because one of my best friends growing up was very good friends with their first keyboard player. And I remember I had one of his early compositions on an MP3 on my computer back in the day. The Winamp days, anyways. I was a bit biased when Primo Victoria came out, let's just say, and I had a vested interest in liking it. I since met the band as well, and they were all really nice guys. This must have been in 2006 or something, so yeah, a long time ago. And I haven't really listened much to Sabaton in well over 10 years now, but it seems they've done very well since then. As far as their appeal goes, though, I guess not all people are musical snobs. That's all I have to say about that. Very serious. I'm interested in knowing how the concept of the album was created. This actually ties in with the next question, so let's include that one too before answering them both. You're working on a concept album and seem like someone who appreciates visible themes and storylines in music, hence your appreciation of lyrics and musicals. When you are writing music, do you have a pre-imagined theme or concept that you are writing towards, or are you just jamming and you stumble across things that inspire these kinds of ideas? So first of all, yes, I mean, this is right on the money. I do love storylines in music, and I often think of sections or even songs as scenes from a movie, book, or a play, and the more emotionally charged, the better, especially with a proper backstory to the scene, which is definitely why I like musicals, for example. And I'm starting to think that I must have said something that wasn't worded that well, or that I didn't explain myself properly, because I've clearly given the impression that this is a concept album, which I guess technically it's not wrong per se, but it's not a concept album in the sense that it's got one linear, cohesive, and coherent story arc from start to finish, like something like the latest Opeth album or anything like that. But it explores a few themes quite heavily. So in that sense, it's centered around the concept of destiny, of being dealt a bad hand from the start, forgiveness or lack thereof, and ultimately death. Almost as if no matter what you do or how hard you try to make the best out of the life you were given, things are ultimately stacked against you, at least in this incarnation. It's an album about trying, but it's not a cohesive story with recurring characters throughout. And as far as having a pre-imagined theme or concept before writing, it's a bit of both. I often do, but when I stumble upon things in the writing process that takes the song somewhere else, I try to go with that instead of forcing my initial idea. That doesn't mean that I typically scrap the initial idea or change it. It just means that now I have two ideas instead of one. Because yeah, it's very common for me to start with a vision, I guess, or a clear idea what kind of song I want to create and how I want it to feel and what sort of universe I want to create with that song. I have an idea of the soundscape, the type of language, the textures, and all sorts of building blocks involved in creating an experience in a specific mood or emotion, but then I don't always succeed in making it be that, so I try again and I reserve a space on the album for that type of song until I get it somewhat right, or until I have enough other kinds of songs that it has transformed on its own into a totally different thing that I could also explore and turn into something exciting in its own right. So yeah, definitely a bit of both, but I should also say that it is a bit of a grieving process when I have a very strong vision and I fail again and again to get it right, because that does happen a lot. But then I tell myself that it's just a matter of time and that I'm just biding my time, amassing the right kind of building blocks and skills to put out my future masterpiece one day. Why metal? Why do I love metal, and why do I see myself as making metal music? Well, I guess it's debatable how metal my music actually is, but I love being able to incorporate the crazy primordial elements of metal and the raw, almost shamanic energy that it can channel at times. And I love the emotional range of metal, both musically and thematically. The dark subject matter, the sonic assault, the fast double bass, the chugging guitars, and the clean beauty of the more melodic passages. I love how it's not afraid to go all in, whether that's Sabaton doing their thing to the point of them being 100% them, to the darkest, most disturbing parts of black metal, or the crazy musicality and technical skill of Dream Theater or Orbit Culture getting the visual aesthetic of the dark forests of my homeland just right. Whatever it is, it's all there, and then some. That's why metal for me. That's what metal means to me. How do you deal with a full-time job, family time, and not much time to develop your music, plus YouTube? Well, not as well as I would have wanted, but I do my best with the time I have, and the shortest answer to this, I guess, is that I drink a lot of coffee. And I try to squeeze in as many late nights as my body and overall health can handle. nights such as this one. Because yeah, the reality is that I don't have a lot of spare time, so I try to stay disciplined enough to put all the spare time I have into this, whenever I have it, and only this, really. If I don't, I could never keep this going. And also, in case you're not at all familiar with how YouTube works, I'm not even monetized on here because I don't meet the watch time requirement, so I don't make any money on YouTube for any of my videos, despite YouTube showing ads on them all the time. Only YouTube makes money off of my videos at this point. This is all just a big passion project. Has any specific music changed your life? A genre you didn't know you liked but learned about and helped improve something other than your ability in music? This is an interesting question to think about. Nothing specific comes to mind right away, at least not regarding anything as specific as a genre. But I would say overall that working on understanding why people like certain kinds of music and getting a greater understanding of just how many different things people can like and appreciate in music is always a healthy reality check, if you will. For example, I feel like I constantly have to check myself and my tunnel vision and remind myself that what I like is not the norm at all. I seem to always forget that sad music can make people sad, for example, or that others cry to instrumental music, or that people like music they can dance to, and that is the kind of music that makes these people feel good. They want happy music to vibe to or with. And sorry if you feel like a part of they here. I don't mean to make anybody feel excluded. It's just that is totally alien to me. Dance as an expression of anything is really not my thing, unless you count headbanging and overall freaking out, releasing pent-up physical energy after the cello build-up and the monomarth slip for the kill. Stuff like that. So yeah, there's that. If that even counts. Not being so narrow-minded or too caught up in my own relationship with music that I treat myself as the norm for everything. And I guess experiencing new genres and always learning about music helps in that. I'd love to see you talk about your favorite releases of the year, both in the community and outside of it. It will also be cool to hear more about your music production process. I want to use the first part of this question to talk about this community for a moment, like I said in the beginning, and all the awesome talent in it. Because in terms of favorite releases in the community, it's hard because there's so much creativity and skill adjacent to the channel, but not everyone releases their music for public consumption, if you will, or is actively trying to grow an audience in that sense. So I will focus my answer on those I think do. And first out is a song called Fatal Frame of Mind by Sleepy Drifter, together with Save Rooms. It sounds like this. Super cool track, and a big shout out to Kazuki, the man behind the Sleepy Drifter project. He's a busy guy, and I will link to some more of his projects down below. It's great stuff. Next up is someone you may remember from before on the channel, and if you know my music, you're probably familiar with his name already. It's Lamond, and here's a snippet of a song he put out this year that I think sounds really cool. He's got the chops, he's got the sweeping, he's got the technique, he's got all that, which is awesome too, don't get me wrong, but there's something at the center of this. There's a mood there that I really like, and I guess it really stuck with me the first time I heard it because it's still stuck with me now, and I encourage you to go check it out. Go check him out. Since the question specifically mentioned releases this year, I've left out a few people that I also really encourage you to check out. For example, Clinically Sane and GHOSTsTALKER. I'll link to their stuff down below as well, and more, so please make sure you check out the whole description and go listen to some of the awesome talent we have in the community. There's also a Discord server for the channel that you can find there as well. We have a monthly songwriting challenge, and if you'd be interested in participating and developing as a songwriter, and it's an overall great place to talk music and music making in all forms, as well as all kinds of other things. It's a really rad place, if I may say so myself. And as far as my music production process, well, I guess there are some general things I could say, and I don't mean to sound dismissive about it because I really like this question a lot. It's just that it's hard for me to articulate without getting very specific about the nitty-gritty details. The main thing for me is that I want my songs to feel like you're entering my world. That's one huge goal for me, and something I feel like I still haven't achieved in the way that I want. Because I have a very specific vision for this, both sonically and aesthetically, and I feel like I'm just barely at the beginning. It's one of those where I know exactly what it is and what it isn't, but I can't necessarily put it into words well. And of course, that is a combination of songwriting, instrumentation, and production. And I have ideas for at least 2 more albums, and they're both very different from each other and from this album. But in my mind, after I complete all 3, I'm hopefully closer to that place I'm looking for. But I do like a big and wide soundscape with lots of other elements and lots of other sounds that don't necessarily belong in a traditional band, if you will, just to reinforce the feeling of weaving a world around the music. And because my project is not created for live shows, I feel like I have all the freedom in the world to create that experience and write with that in mind. I can go big and crazy, and I don't need to worry about translating it into a live context. And I want to get better at utilizing that. But at the same time, I also struggle with sounding overproduced or too polished and corrected like so much music today. But I feel like there is a time and place for each, depending on the style, and that I haven't quite gotten that balance right either yet. But to sum it up, I definitely set out to create an experience and a journey with each song, especially on this album. And as you may know already, my songs are not traditionally structured, at least not in the sense that they have a verse or a chorus that repeat throughout the song, and this is very much an intentional thing, at least in this moment in time. I have future plans to go in the opposite direction as well, but the goal of providing a familiar sound will remain, even within that structure. And that's the common thread I'm working on really defining and establishing in my musical universe. Ideally, all of this would have a video component to it as well, but time and money make that really difficult at this moment. If you're familiar with movie making and the term auteur, then you get the idea. Because if you're watching a movie as the audience, you know right away if you're watching a Wes Anderson movie or a Tarantino movie. That's what I want, but for my musical canon. And that end goal influences my production process a whole lot in every decision. And I try to pay a lot of attention to that at every step of the way, to also notice times where things didn't end up working like I hoped, because that's equally important. So yeah, that in a nutshell. What would make you happy looking back in 10 years? I've saved this one for last because it feels like a nice summary of everything I've tried to express on the channel so far. And I guess I would say that it would make me happy to feel like I created something that succeeded in sharing that vision I was just talking about with the world. And it would also mean a great deal to me if I could look back and see that I've made a lot of friends and close connections in the process, and remained a positive influence and a presence in the community, and maybe even helped or inspired others to make their own music and share it with the world. I guess that's the most important thing, to put things out there that can hopefully help people in ways that I feel like I was once helped and saved even by both music and mentors at previous points in my life. Yeah, that would make me really happy. And with that said, thank you so much for watching all the way till the end, and thank you for being a part of what we do here. Thank you for contributing, thank you for watching, and thank you for interacting and spreading the good stuff here in the community. I appreciate every single one of you, and I take none of that for granted. I really, really appreciate it. And also, let me know what you think of this video, if you think this is something we should do again sometime. And as always, have a lovely day wherever you are in the world, and take care. Bye-bye.